From the very beginning of this channel, I always made it a point to talk openly about what God thinks about being armed. And I've made several videos about it. And so I want to address a couple things. One, how we can kind of get this concern about whether or not Christians should be armed out of our head, as well as get an understanding of every single video. At the end, I say, love God, love your family, and love guns. And a lot of people struggle with me saying that. So I kind of want to address that first, then what God says about guns specifically, because there's a few things that we should understand about what the Bible says about being armed. I want to challenge you first. Outside of Jesus, are you aware of any biblical figures that weren't armed? I mean, you got Adam and Eve, you got Jesus. Some might argue the Jews that were, enslaved were not armed at first, but they were heavily armed after they left Egypt. Or you might argue, well, Daniel, of course he wasn't armed, and you probably could say he wasn't. That's probably true, but it was because he was restricted by the government from doing so, not because God told him not to be armed. So outside of that, any biblical figures that weren't armed or surrounded by armed people? Me neither. They were all armed, all of them. David, very armed. Abraham, heavily armed. Militia armed, like a small army armed. All of them, you can go check. Isaiah armed, Elijah armed, like everybody was armed. Saul armed. So we kind of need to get that out of our heads, that for some reason that because we're Christians that we should not be armed. And here's why we should be armed. Because wickedness exists in this world to kill and destroy. Now, what's wickedness trying to kill and destroy? They're trying to kill and destroy the advancement of the kingdom of heaven on earth as it is in heaven. There's always been this plan. From Adam and Eve to the very end of this world, there was this plan for the kingdom of heaven to be established on this earth as it is in heaven. That's the second coming of Jesus Christ, where he established his throne in Jerusalem for 1,000 years. That's the whole Bible from beginning to end is written about this coming of this kingdom, the coming of this kingdom. Well, the enemy is clearly trying to stop that from happening. Well, who are the stewards of the Christian faith until Christ returns? We are. We're the stewards of the Christian faith until Christ returns. The church, the actual ecclesiast. We're the ones who are the stewards of the Christian faith until Christ returns. So you don't think that the wicked one is trying to kill and destroy us? Of course he is. So what should we do? Well, what would Jesus say we should do? Well, he'd tell us we should sell our cloak and go buy a sword if we don't own one. So if you don't own a gun, according to Jesus, you need to sell whatever you need to sell, even if it's your coat, to get a gun. These are literally the words that Jesus said, except for he put in sword and not a gun. But today, this is what he would say. So it's very important we just totally get this out of our heads, that somehow, because we're armed, that this isn't biblical. The other piece of this too is that, when I say love guns, be very clear, biblically speaking, there's many different types of love. When I say love God, that's the deepest love. I love him. He is my Father in heaven. I love him. I love my family. This is a totally different kind of love. It's similar, but as the father of my family, I kind of have this different, more of a caregiving type of love for them. And then love guns just like you would love playing golf or love tinkering with motors or that sort of thing. Like it's a hobby kind of love. Be very clear on what these three different things are. I used to say that when in college, I was really infatuated with old clocks. Like I would always go to antique stores, and if I could find an old clock that worked, Man, I just love that saying, especially the precision and the machining of a nice old clock was cool to me. It's the nerd side of me. I like guns, love guns the same way, for the exact same reason. They're cool, they're precise, they're the mechanics of it all, the precision of it all. Man, I just love that stuff. Fascinating to me, and that's what I'm getting at. And I also like the fact that they're an equalizer too. It's a good hobby to have. It also has the benefit of self-defense. So this is kind of what I'm referring to. It's very important that we understand that throughout the Bible, many things in the Bible would not have happened had people not been armed. They went into battle for different reasons. When David confronted Goliath, he didn't go empty-handed, he went in armed. I can go on and on. Everybody was armed. Peter was armed. We have to get this out of our head that for some reason, because we're Christians, that wicked things won't come up against us. Like, that's why wicked things are coming up against us. And it's very important that you be prepared. Just like Jesus said to his disciples, that after he leaves, they're going to be the stewards of the Christian faith until he returns. And by the way, do you have some weapons? Oh yeah, you have this, okay. If you don't, sell your cloak and get a weapon. Because after I'm gone, man, you're going to need it. You're going to need it. It'd be foolish to suggest you're not. And in the end, it is better to have and not need than to need and not have. It is your Christian duty to protect your family. It is your Christian duty to protect your neighbor. It is your Christian duty to protect your church. It is your Christian duty to protect strangers. It is very important that we wrap our head around what your Christian duty really is when it comes to guns.